we're live now.
Yes.
Did you notice when I put the thing on Instagram, there's a song by Osric Tentacles called Sploosh?
Dude, yes. Yes. And it fits perfectly. What?
I only found it yesterday.
So, okay, hold on. What was the name of the artist?
Osric Tentacles.
So you're saying that the artist has tentacles in the name, and the song is called Sploosh.
That's what I'm saying.
Can we collaborate with them somehow?
I have no idea. I used to listen to them back in 1991 when I was like 13 years old. The first time I took acid, and I was listening to The Eternal Wheel. It's like psychedelic prog rock stuff.
I thought you just found a random song because you typed in some keywords. No, you actually know about this artist.
Oh no, I wasn't just Googling Sploosh.
Because I thought you were trying to promote this stream, and you searched up tentacles or sploosh or one of these.
No. I've loved Osric Tentacles since I was a kid, and then I was just listening to like a random playlist, and then the song starts, and then I'm driving, and it says Osric Tentacles Sploosh. I was like, wow, that needs to be our anthem, man. That's perfect.
So, what do you think that means?
Well, it's something to do with them taking mushrooms. When I looked it up, it was like an experience that they had when they were taking mushrooms. So I don't know what Sploosh is.
Just a bunch of druggies wasting their time
wasting your goddamn time being a bunch of goddamn hippies.
Yeah, do something productive with your life. Invest your money in a divorce or something.
So something productive for this.
Go get a divorce.
Get a divorce or something.
So FOMO, dude, what does it stand for?
Fear of massive orifices.
I'm really scared of them.
When they're gaping.
Ew. Ew.
It stands for, it's what your generation has created, this acronym. It stands for the fear of missing out.
Yes, fear of missing out. And I think it's a very prevalent phenomenon within the younger generations. And now it's actually kind of permeated every generation, I think.
Well, I think I'm going to run with this hypothesis now that because social media culture is so ubiquitous and it's everywhere, that we're all effectively millennials now. We're all becoming millennials. So even my mum is developing millennial type attitudes, and her relationship with social media is millennial-esque. So we're all getting that. I think because social media is created in California by millennials, by people who are in between my age and your age.
Right. And obviously we cannot deny the fact of globalizing culture at all, but now it's just a matter of what that culture is. And it's definitely, I think we've talked about this multiple times, we live in a very adolescent culture, aka like millennial mindset, and it sprouted from San Francisco's what's it called, Silicon Valley, aka LA as well. And those two have basically had the monopoly in terms of determining where the culture goes. You know, you have the techies that develop the technology, and they live right next to the airheads that have a massive amount of followers. So they just hand them down there, and then it becomes the new regime.
And it's a perfect storm, because had it come at any other time in human history, it would have been a fringe movement. It would never have caught on. But we're in this late stage consumer capitalist phase now, and it just merges perfectly with that. So the ethos is me, always me, nobody else, me all the time, total indulgence and rampant consumerism, which then plays out. It seems to be narcissism. It looks like narcissism because it functions very like narcissism, though it isn't actually NPD. So you have what can very justifiably at this point be described as a very, very narcissistic culture, high in entitlement, low in resilience, very low in humility, which has catastrophic consequences across the board. I mean, just the stunning lack of humility alone is so destructive now.
Not on social media. All it does is reward in cyberspace. And that's the problem, I think. I think that it's so distorted It's hard to say. It's really hard to say that humility has negative consequences when everybody is on the internet at all times and they only see it be rewarded. But I agree, it is definitely detrimental.
Yeah. So Sam Vaknin, who I've collaborated with a number of times, has coined this phrase "malignant egalitarianism." So when you move from no humility, like I can't be taught anything because I know everything, you then get to a place where you're like, well, nobody is above me. And if anybody's above me, I'll tear them down.
Right.
And if somebody's above me, it's because their daddy put them there, or they're part of some elite class that stole their way there. And this is the dominant narrative now. So nobody will listen to anything. So like having an expert or being an expert is slowly becoming more and more redundant year by year.
Yeah, I mean, malignant egalitarianism sounds very, very similar to communism, doesn't it?
That's rather yes, Mr. Charles.
Yeah, man. I think anybody who shows any type of sign that they might be more knowledgeable about a particular topic, the lack of humility within the general audience doesn't allow them to fully believe whatever that supposed expert is. And then you have another layer of like, okay, well, on top of that, a lot of these experts are full of shit on top of that.
Right. So you do, that's the other side of it. Yeah. All part of the same problem. So people putting themselves into the role of expert, you have these shits who just say, right, I see a little way of making money and of getting likes and follows here and aggrandizing my ego. I will now rip off other people's work and put myself in the position of expert. And most people don't have the insight to distinguish between authentic and false.
Yeah, man. And what's really interesting is, especially growing up in California, you get a bunch of con artists saying that they know everything about everything. They're charging people like so much amount of money to tell them anything. And you know, from my perspective, like I obviously I do all of this content creation for a living, and then sometimes I'll be around certain people from my past or whatever that claim that they do the same thing, and then in terms of their skill set, I'm not trying to say that I'm any better, but the actual, let's just say, uh, the ability, the actual technical ability to pull certain things off just aren't there. But they're really good networkers.
Right, right. Which is a very, from my experience of doing, my limited experience of doing business in California and in America generally, that's where things lead. Lean. They lean towards the appearance of skill and the appearance of ability. It's who you know. It's who you network with. It's who you lunch with. And you can find yourself in endless fucking meetings and endless fucking lunches in the endless planning phase. And I'm like, yeah, this is the fun bit, guys. This is the masturbational, this is what we could do. Let's get excited phase. It's like snorting a line of coke. But business doesn't function like that. You have to actually do some work, and it sucks. It's boring and it's repetitive, and that's where a lot of things fall down. So you have this perfect storm, this giant fucking stew of like low resilience, low humility, high in entitlement, low in impulse control, high in delusion, a critical lack of critical thinking skills. Sorry, folks, that wasn't a great sentence. And as it comes together, you then add to it the fear of missing out. And what we're sort of saying now, because this conversation started in the context of relationships and love, right? Where we were like, if you add all of that to a critical fear, I just keep using critical here, to this huge fear of missing out, you end up in a situation where it's impossible to do relationships. It's impossible to do love because for all the aforementioned reasons, it's an anti-love, anti-intimacy brew that we've mixed up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It goes further than actually, it's about every part of the human experience right now is the fact that there's so many options and that you can always be scared or you're always fearful of missing out on something. If you want to attribute it to career choice or whatever, I mean, we're talking about people just posturing, but it does say something when every single person lists in their Instagram bio, healer, guide, a counselor, booty model, musician, photographer, and a bunch of options because they feel like there's so many options and that you can't miss out on one particular type of thing as well.
Yeah, because they're delusional and they're infantile and they watch too much TV and they think somebody's going to come along and see them and make them famous because they deserve to be famous. And they don't believe that in a vague, dreamy way. They believe it in a very literal way. I think if you actually popped people's heads open and looked inside, what you saw would be frightening. It would be scary. It would be worrying. Like if people were honest about what they genuinely believed. So you have that concept in economics called opportunity cost, which means if I choose this, there is a cost to the opportunity of the choice that I didn't take. And in business, we roll the dice. Business is gambling. Like you go, well, we've done it in our creative projects. I think if we do it like this, people are going to like it. But you don't really know. But whatever you do choose, there's an infinity of things you did not choose, and that's what's torturing us now. Because we are actually, generally the culture is experiencing that as though somebody has taken something away from us, but it's something you never had. It's just a dream. It's just a fantasy. But you're going, right. I'm anxious because I could be at that concert. I should be with that guy. I should be eating in that restaurant. And it's like, wow, like, dude, you can't do everything.
It's like you can't even clean your room, let alone do 3 different careers that are 6 figures, as well as have a harem. You know what I mean?
So we've really entered into this fantastical infantile moment, which, on the face of it, you might think, well, so what? That's kind of cute, but the kind of cute in a slightly dark way. But we're basically spoiled brats. So what? The problem with all of the brew that I mentioned before and all the ingredients go into that brew, and then not being able to distinguish fact from fiction and not really caring anymore, by the way, what's fact and what's fiction. Like, people don't even really give a fuck what the data is. They don't want to know. They don't want to look. You can put published research in front of them. They won't fucking read it. It can get violent quickly. And I think that's where we are in history now, is like we're on the verge of great atrocities. The ones that we looked back on and went, how did they do that? How did they get there? We advanced civilized people. I remember when Schindler's List came out and everybody was just jerking off like, oh, never again. We would never that. And I'm like, it's literally happening in Bosnia right now, you dumb fucks. It's the same year that came out. There were concentration camps in Bosnia. And people say, no, that's not true. We've got photos. We've seen them. So here we are. We're at this point in history again where really bad things are on the cards. There are potential to be occurring.
Yeah, there's that interview with that KGB agent. I forgot what it.
Yuri Brezhnev.
Say it again for everybody.
Yuri Brezhnev, Breznev, and everything he's saying is coming to pass. Everything.
Yeah, he had an interview in like the early '80s or something, some grainy ass footage, right? And it's really dry, so that's why a lot of people don't really pay attention to it. It's just the delivery is fucking dry. But if you actually can power through it, he basically describes the steps into a disintegrating society. And
revolution and normalization.
Say it again.
It's demoralization, revolution, and normalization. That's why we keep hearing the term new normal. They're trying to go from revolution or crisis and then into the normalization. It's a Soviet phrase, normalization.
Right. So to quickly summarize, this dude worked as a Russian spy, went to America, actually fell in love with America, and then dropped the KGB. But his plan was actually to instill those steps, I think, within America, or at least get some intel so he could deliver it to Russia. And what he was saying, what I remember, one of the key phrases that I remember him saying is that what's happening in America in the time period that he was in, which was in the 80s,
is
what he said, it's already happening here, and it's happening way faster than me and my higher ups could have ever imagined. This is the KGB's Soviet wet dream. The fact that it happened this fast. Usually it takes multiple generations, but it actually happened within a few in America.
Yeah, I think he was talking in 1981, and he said he'd been there for 15 years at that point. So maybe he'd come in like 66, 67. And he said this is happening way, way faster. He was talking about, he said that what they had predicted and what they planned for is they needed an ideological infection that would take 2 generations to get in, to really set in hard. And he said it had come in inside of 1 generation. The ideological infection in the universities that he was talking about is malignant egalitarianism. It is what Nietzsche wrote about in his sort of poem or sub-essay within Thus Spake Zarathustra in Tarantulas. It was like everybody who's shouting for justice and everybody who's shouting for equality, secretly what they want is revenge and power. So it's a kind of vulnerable narcissism, if you like.
Yes. And another key phrase that I remember him stating was also, when I think one of the stages occur, it basically takes an individual or even the entire generation to completely deny facts. And that's a big part of one of the steps to get to where you need to go in terms of disintegrating a society. You can show a person a blue piece of paper and they would say, no, that's actually green, or it's supposed to be green because of the nature of the discriminatory regime within the actual practice. And then it comes with that mental gymnastics to actually prove that the blue is actually the absence of green. Therefore, the actual green is supposed to be there. But what we see through our subjectivity, you get my point, you know, and that's kind of what you see now with our rationale.
Well, this is what Orwell was worried about. And he was a socialist. He was a left winger, but he could see, obviously after World War II and what happened with Stalin, he could see where it would go wrong. And this is the point of how many fingers am I holding up, Winston? Is it 3 or is it 4? It's however many you tell me there are. It's whatever you say it is. It's whatever the party says it is when Winston breaks, which is the same as saying it's whatever the dominant cultural narrative that won't get me cancelled says it is. If it's 4, then it's 4. If it's 2, then it's 2. It's whatever maybe these aren't fingers anymore. Maybe they're not. But as Yuri Brezhnev said, at that point, you've won. At that point, you've broken the nation. And these useful idiots, he says, who think that they're doing good work, won't realize until they get the kick up their fat bottom, as he says.
Yeah, I remember that.
Until it's their turn, because he says once these useful idiots have been used, they'll be first up against the fucking wall, because the regime that comes in doesn't need them anymore. You've been used. You're like the child soldiers who get used in Africa, and once the war's won, they don't have any more use for you.
I remember that too. The young and full of energy and the ones that are pushing towards the revolution are usually the first to go when the regime is there, because at that point they are actually a threat to the existing regime, and they would be the first to try to challenge that. Therefore, they're the ones that are usually sent away, even though they fought for that cause.
Absolutely. They're a threat now. They're a complete threat now. Young, energetic. These are the people who have the energy to riot or fight on the front line. And if they're not on side, because they have to be on side, and if they can see tyranny out, tyranny in, they won't be on side. But that's what it will be. It will just be a new form of tyranny. So when people are cheering these things on from the safety of their living rooms and going, yes, this is wonderful, this is revolution, we're doing something good, I'm always like, look, I understand, but look past the symbolic gesture to the essence of what we're doing. We don't want history being rearranged by angry mobs. That doesn't mean some statues shouldn't come down, but we should have a sober adult conversation that probably lasts a couple of months before we start doing that. And then, maybe we should change them. Maybe we should put new, maybe I don't, or you keep the statues and you rewrite the plaque and say, this guy was actually a prick. You don't start eradicating pieces of history. Nietzsche warned us against that. He said, if we lose our sense of history, we are really fucked. Nietzsche said that quote, word for word.
Did he really? He dropped an F-bomb?
He didn't say we are fucked. We are fucked.
Yeah, man. And yeah, but at this level, I mean, I don't know, because the emotional energy is still at an all-time high. I mean, we saw the volcano, the eruption that occurred a few months back, but it still seems to be going pretty full force, especially in the West. And I'm not exactly sure there's any room for some sort of reflection, unfortunately. So it's a matter of just riding the wave or something, man.
It's an interesting time. Somebody in the comments said America won't stand for this shit, and they won't eat the socialist shit. I would say this, as far as civil war in America goes, and it could come to that, it would be short. I mean, there is a sleeping giant in America that is not racially determined. It is pan-racial, which is, and it's left-wingers and right-wingers. It's people of all races who are trained, who are armed, and who just will not put up with it. It would be a very short-lived civil war. It would be bang, bang, this is done, and there'd just be dead people. There's a real sleeping giant there. The ones who are the best prepared, really prepared for violence, will be the quietest until the moment arises. And in America, that's the majority, and it's an overwhelming majority. So what we're seeing via the media is still a very noisy minority. And I don't want them to get shot dead. I think they're a bunch of confused kids. I think that they're ideologically infected kids who've been led astray. I don't want them to get hurt, but we are moving towards that. And it will be Black Republicans. It will be, I don't know, Puerto Rican Democrats. But they are ex and serving military. They're ex and serving police officers. They're ex and serving whatever. And they're armed and they're trained and they're ready to rock. And they won't be hitting people with bike blocks. That's not how they'll respond. These were my customers for years. I worked with these people in Street Fight Secrets for years. And I know how they view this kind of thing. They'll wait. And they'll wait patiently, but then when it happens, it will be over rapidly, very, very rapidly.
You think any of these people experience FOMO?
Oh yes, sorry, FOMO. They fear missing out. They fear killing someone. They fear missing out on shooting someone. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, to bring it back to the FOMO and the masses being delusionally, let's just say, convinced of their own lack of skill in terms of that sense. I was actually thinking, as we were speaking about a bit earlier, like how you usually see the most airheaded celebrities and influencers. And I think the big reason why is because they usually don't lack the capacity to analyze the multitude of options, and they convince themselves of that one thing. And they also have the balls to just power through it, which actually does take a lack of forethought. Because if you do sit and reflect on the possible failures and outcomes, which any rational person does, I mean, you should do that as a smart person. And that's why a lot of these smart people generally don't get seen, or they don't have the marketing prowess, they don't succeed, is because of that rationalization, the over rationalization, which is generally a good thing. But when it comes to trying to be seen and start your own stuff, it's the people that don't think too much of it. And then those are the fraudsters and the snake oil salesmen, because they convince themselves of that one thing that they think they're really good at.
Yes. Yeah. Back to infantile delusion and grandiosity. They're in love with an image of themselves. They recruit and bully a clique of people who will fawn to them and tell them that they are this thing that they delusionally believe they are. If you break the rule, you're cast out or gulagged or whatever. And if you adhere to the cult, then you're rewarded for it. So it's really sick. It's a sick mentality. I do think when you're talking about the more vocal elements of that, I really do think it's borderline personality disorder. I had a follower of mine ask Jordan Peterson about that, and he got very angry. I said, just ask Jordan Peterson, does he think the SJW postmodernist regressive leftist types, does he think that it's broad scale borderline personality disorder? And apparently got very, very grumpy. Because I don't know, because he knows it is, but he doesn't want to say it. He doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't
every time I've seen interviews when people ask him about borderline, he just totally veers off. He does not even he dances around the question quite a bit when borderline gets brought up, for good reason, man. Anytime I even mention that word, the fact that we just mentioned the B word just now, it's always guaranteed at least 2 or 3 comments being very, very upset over it.
Yeah, because people are regularly misdiagnosed. People with CPTSD are diagnosed as having borderline, and they go, "Hey, that's who I am. These are the people who be like, tell you, oh, I have borderline," or they write BPD in their Instagram profile.
Yeah.
They'll tell you about it. But a lot of people are misdiagnosed with it. Really, when we talk about personality disorders and cultural issues, I was thinking about this the other day. We should be talking more about borderline than narcissism, because the way social media indoctrinates people, it is grandiose narcissism for the people who are winning, for the people who have 2 million followers. But for the losers, it's the way they act is borderlines. They act.
Let me tell you, I just did a video on this on my giant flip ship, and I love my new background, by the way. It's a beautiful spaceship, floats around. It's amazing. But I did a video on one of the biggest influencers on YouTube. This girl called Tana Mojo, right? I mean, typical big YouTube influencer, definitely NPD, like no surprise there or whatever, right? And she made an apology video, because apology videos are the thing to do nowadays. And I was covering the issue and the topic of the masses demanding apologies, just fucking forcing apologies. Even if they're not satisfied with it, they can pick it apart and tear it apart. And the thing is, it seems very symbiotic to a NPD and a BPD relationship. Like, we know which one is who and how the reactions play out in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, the first question that comes to my mind in the scenario describing, you have the grandiose narcissist at the top, the BPD crowd is hounding them. I'm like, do these people have jobs? Are they working? Are they in functional relationships? Where's the time coming from? Where do you get the energy from for all this? This is a full-time hobby for some people. It's a career for some people, and they're all loving it. They're like basking in the drama, the reflected drama, the outrage. There's like just slime. It's this slime orgy, and everybody's just going, "Oh yes, lovely slime." And the grandiose NPD is going, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Oh, all over your face. And the BPDs are going, "Oh yes, he's sorry. She's sorry."
Yeah,
you're right. It's a ceremony. It's a ceremony.
Yeah, it's more of like, that wasn't honest. Do it again. Like that. I don't believe you. Like, try it again. That was too authentic. That was too inauthentic, dude. So here's the thing: people cry an apology. Those were fake tears. Do it again. That wasn't right. Tana comes off like kind of emotionless. That was so robotic. Are you fucking kidding me? She doesn't even mean it. So it was just like a battle of exactly those types of dynamics playing out, man. And I was saying exactly what you just said about, like, do these people have something to do? And a lot of the crowd at large will be like, they need to take accountability. Accountability.
Make your bed and carry your bloody burden.
Dude, I fucking see the word and hear the word accountability through every second video that I find on YouTube nowadays. And then in the video that I covered, I'm just like, hey, maybe y'all should take accountability for your own life. If you're worried about an influencer's apology, where is your own accountability of your life?
I had a shitty email from somebody the other day that said, the reason you can see narcissism in everybody is because you're a narcissist. And as we say in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you spot it, you got it. And I'm like, but you just sent an email to me saying that I'm a narcissist. Hey. Hashtag circular logic.
I know. What the fuck? You see narcissism in every way, and that's why you're a narcissist.
Right. Because everybody who can see that somebody else is a narcissist has to be a narcissist. If you spot it, you got it. I'm like, are you 5? If you spot it, you got it. And if you smelt it, you dealt it. What the fuck?
Dude. Sometimes someone lets out the nastiest fucking fart on a tram, and I will go out of my way to be like, oh my God, dude, who the fuck did that? It does not mean, as much as I do fart, and I do fart a lot, if I smell it in public and I make a scene, it doesn't mean that I flatulated, okay?
Do you remember that Uber driver in Prague that farted and nearly killed us?
Were we both in the back seat too? Yeah. we put the fucking jacket over our face, dude.
Fucking hell. So anyway, what are we supposed to be talking about again?
Fart of missing out.
The fart of missing out. Yeah, there's a lot of craziness to do with this, but I actually think we need to have that conversation, and we need to have it without the hysteria and the dogpiling of people who've been diagnosed or misdiagnosed as BPD, and just say, listen, like, everybody's talking narcissism, but look, ladies and gents, we actually need to go through, like, rather than your favorite YouTuber's version of what narcissism is, let's do the DSM, 9 traits of narcissism, and then let's do the DSM traits of BPD, and let's really look at how we're using the internet and how we're functioning, how we talk to other people. Are we being respectful? Are we being boundaried? Are we staying in our fucking lanes, or are we trying to absorb the other person, dominate them? And these are things that have to be talked about, because now it's so normalized to do that. We have lunacy out here. Like, people are making the craziest fucking claims imaginable, and nobody says anything. People just go along with it. We now live in a post-factual world, a post-science world, a post-historic world. We're at the end of history. History's over. Like, because who are the history keepers? Who's keeping track of this fucking shit? And who cares? Before we cared. Now we don't. We don't want the facts. We just want to be told that we're right and our enemies are wrong, and that's it.
Yes. You know, that's a really good question that you brought up. Like, why don't we look at BPD just as much as NPD within the culture? But I think what it is that the BPD mindset works so well in the defense with social media.
Yes.
It's like playing victim at times and being emotional about it and not trying to hurt people's feelings at times and stuff. And I'm wondering how come there's such a big movement for destigmatize BPD, but not destigmatize NPD? You know, why is it that, why do we choose that this is the bad one and not the other one, even though it's shown to hurt others and themselves?
I'll tell you, but I'll get shit. I'll get shit for it. NPD is love me, I'm the best. BPD is I can't control my feelings, so I'm going to control your behavior, which is, tell me that's not the SJW credo. In essence, I am not happy. And then they'll say, I'm not happy because this packet of chewing gum is here. No, false. You are emotionally dysregulated. You are unhappy, and then you find something to direct your unhappiness at. That's the core of how you function in the world. And then you spend all your time bullying and coercing the behaviors of other people because you can't control how you feel. NPD is not like that. In many ways, a true grandiose NPD is positively fucking benign compared to a BPD. Because if you pat them on the bum and say, if you're a grandiose NPD, I just say, Pierre, you are the fucking best, the most handsome, the most wonderful. And you will just go, okay, that's it. You've established dominance. You're better than me. You're the most beautiful. That's the end. BPD don't work like that. Like you just said, apologize. Here's my apology. Not good enough. here's my second apology. I didn't like that. It never ends. It's a never-ending sucking spiral vacuum, you know, and you just go further and further down in it. You can't satiate BPD.
Yeah, right. And it's like just the demand someone to mold yourself to every whim of another person's emotional fragility is so manipulative, controlling, and it's really hard to be around. And if you do want to use the excuse if you can't control yourself, well, then you can use that. Then you should be able to use that same excuse with narcissism. Don't tell this person to apologize. Don't tell that. Let this Jeffree Star, Tana Mojo be a complete abusive asshole, because in the fucking diagnosis, it also says that these people can't fucking control themselves because they also have emotional dysregulation. If we want that egalitarianism and the equality, then we should either destigmatize both or stigmatize both.
Right. Try putting that message out on YouTube. I will stand.
I mean, I know already for a fact.
A big wall.
Dude, for a fucking fact, people are gonna get so pissed in the comments when this thing gets uploaded. But I mean, it is what it is, dude.
Well, so you know, this double standard, I think, is why everybody feels it, but they can't verbalize it. So people are pissed off and they're frustrated because they're going, the standard by which you're viewing this situation and your response to it is hypocritical. So then you create a political movement that's based on a hypocrisy that becomes, so you say, I'm against this, and then you go, and then you become this. And we're all going, hey, excuse me, Bellend, you got us on board because you said you were going to be kind and equal and save people, and then we've come right the way back around, and you're a bigger Nazi than the person who started it in the first place. So there's the frustration. But how do you verbalize that, and what do you do about it? If you can't verbalize it, you can't do anything about it, we go into learned helplessness. My concern for people's mental health generally across the population is the next phase of 2020. I won't say the word, but 2020 is its own beast at the moment. Will be learned helplessness. It will just be, people will just switch off. And so I'm sort of saying, okay, maybe now's a good time to talk about meditation, detaching from social media again, do some digital detox, meditation, get in nature. Because if people detach malignantly or with no directive, it will be learned helplessness. But maybe the detachment could be a little bit more positive and have a bit more intent. Did that make sense?
Yes. Somebody on my stream today, I was just at the island. By the way, that island was where we first went for a drink, Richard.
Oh yeah, I remember the island with the swans.
That's the one, man. So yeah, so somebody messaged in the thing, was like, Pierre, what's interesting about you is that you never take sides and you just sit and observe the sides. And I thought, oh, that's a really nice thing to say. And you know, it's a general mode of operation for, I think, you and I both. But to hear that in text made me think, wait a minute, most of the world doesn't naturally look at things that way. And right. I think that is perhaps the solution to all of this craziness. And maybe the first step is like what you said, meditation. Well,
the beautiful thing, if you do like a very dry, tasteless form of meditation, like pure Zen, where you're just feeling, listening and breathing. There's no mantras, that you're not saying anything, you're not focused on anything, you're just in the moment. You find yourself starting to detach, and you can see yourself trying to attach, because we are attachment machines. Right. Humans are attachment machines. I told this story on Instagram Live last night. There was a young man who was talking to me about his grandmother posting about BLM on Facebook and this and that. And I said, I was in here and I was looking at that window meditating, and a flock of birds went by, and I wanted to photograph it and then put it on Instagram. And I'm meditating. I'm like, why do you need to do that? Why? And I was like, because I want to. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that impulse? Can't you just let the birds fly? Can't you just sit here? And I was like, well, I can. FOMO. Missing out on my opportunity to share a cool picture of something that's happening. But this is, in a sense, seeing as we're talking mental health today, is codependency. I'm in a codependent, we all are in a codependent relationship with reality itself. And because we're attachment building machines, we can get a little bit fucking neurotic about our interactions with reality. It is an option to observe the thing and say nothing, do nothing, let it be what it is, and just let that go by. It's hard when the image you're looking at is not a flock of birds, but something really graphic or awful or torturous, as it was when we all, flipped out. It's very hard, but that's the challenge. And there will be more imagery like that coming down the pipe, no doubt, and more stories. So there's narrative, stories, and images. They're external. And it's the world of, like the Buddhists and the Vedics would say, Maya. It's the world of illusion. It's not that it's not happening. It's that we're adding layers of story to it. And it becomes this reverberating thing. And that's maybe where we just need to just watch for a second. You don't have to pick a side. You don't have to join in. You don't actually have to do anything. I'm not saying let people do bad things. But sometimes we do need to calm the fuck down with jumping into scenarios all the time.
Yeah. Detach, think, observe. No, detach, observe, think, then action. And I think somebody in the chat, this is a great question, actually. But that's a form of sitting on the fence. Is that good? And what does that accomplish? I think it's a great counter question.
It's not really sitting on the fence, because if you're sitting on the fence, you're saying, oh, I'm here, I'm involved, but I'm not going to choose the red team or the blue team. I'm not even acknowledging the teams or the scenario. It's like, I'm saying, you do you, I'm going to do me. I'm not sat on the fence. I have no opinion. Sitting on the fence is like, I'm not sure. And I'm saying, no, I'm absolutely sure that right now, I'm not getting involved in that. I'm not touching that, because all I'm doing is adding to the hysteria. I did crowd control for 15 years of my life on and off. And I've seen how mass panic and mass violence can kick off.
Let me ask you, while you're describing this right now, how many times has observing and detaching in that bouncer nightclub setting saved you and others?
Oh, fuck. It's my modus operandi. I'd have guys in my face screaming at me, telling me that they're going to fucking murder me. And I'd be in my head going, how do your feet feel? How's the breathing? Where's your spine? I wouldn't look at them. I'd sort of look away from them. Maybe if I can see the night sky, I'd look at the stars or something. And obviously I'm thinking, if you put your fucking hands on me, you're going on the floor. But I don't have to do anything at this point. Technically, it's illegal to threaten somebody, but my God, the police are so busy, they can't possibly arrest everybody. So he hasn't actually broken the law. So I would see other guys, you get in their face and you're like, I'm going to fucking kill you. And then they'll headbutt them. And then there's a fight and there's an incident where I'd be like, well, until you do something, this really isn't necessary. And we need to have a respect and appreciation for what humans are. We're like packs of monkeys, like, if there's a monkey fight or there's a threat to the monkeys and they go, hoo, 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 and then they all start making that noise, and then it's a big fucking cacophony.
Yeah.
And they're becoming elevated. They're fucking we're either running away or we're smashing something's head in. And you've got to be like, okay, just wait. There's only one monkey making the sound, there's a threat. He could be lying, or he could be mistaken, or it's like you've got to keep things cool, because we're pack animals. If everybody's running, everybody will run. If you start screaming fire at a concert or something and start running, people, and it's not always the right thing to do. When there's a brawl, there's a big fight going on, you can have an instinct for what you should do in that moment, but it's very rare the first instinct is the correct one. You take a breath and you think, what am I here to do? Am I here to assert my ego and smash people's heads in? Or am I here to keep the customers safe? I'm here to keep the customers safe. Okay, I'm going to take a different route here. So yeah, all the time. I use it all the time.
So what I would say, basing off what you're saying, is your actions will vary differently when you do take that time to observe, then think, and then act. So it's not a matter of necessarily do nothing. Oftentimes that is the answer, to actually just let it happen, let things just occur. But obviously it depends on the context of how serious it is. You know, there's many circumstances where you should be involved. But the buffer in sitting with it, letting it kind of sift, observing it without the attachments, then you can accurately determine if an action is appropriate or not.
And a useful question to ask to add to that would be, what is my objective?
I like that.
What are we trying to get done? And I've asked this multiple times in multiple contexts, and you get very, very vague answers. It was the thing I always asked when I was in the education system, and people would pull me in and they'd be like, we need a solution for this. We need to do this. We need to do. And I'm like, what's the objective? And they go, you know, give people an education, give these kids an education. What's that? What's it for? If you don't have a clear objective, you can't have a strategy. What do they do in the military? You know, you see those movies where they stand there and they have the map where the enemy is, and they have a little stick and they point and they go here. They know what the fucking objective is first. Then they form a strategy based on sound principles. They don't all just go for it, run screaming at the enemy and go for the best.
You know, actually, that's a great example. In war, you have to report to like 3 commanding higher ups or some shit. You have to like call it in, and then they have to process whether it's okay to fire first, which is usually never. You usually wait till the other person loads the first shot, and then you really decide whether you actually go for it or not.
It depends on the rules of engagement and the territory that they're in. But yes, absolutely. But why? Because the cost is high and immediate. With social media, the cost is low and possibly never. So you can do and say whatever you want, and there's no consequence to you directly. Nobody's really coming to your house and banging on your door. We're in the military. I mean, especially when you're talking like special forces, you've invested so much money into every individual. You can't afford for them to just be killed for some stupid reason. You have to have very good reasons for why they were killed. And you have to say, okay, these were the chains of command we went through. This is the operational procedures they're trained in. These are the rules of engagement they were told. This is what they were told to do. Every plan they have has like 5 levels of redundancy. It's boring. Secure, like, it's not the same. The military is not the same as civilian security work. But I would tell you, civilian security work is boring as fuck. It was my life, day and night. I was a manager for a security company for 6 years, for many, many years. And it's not about going out and smashing people's heads in. It's what can you see? Do the radios work? Is everybody dry? Do the men need feeding? Because men, when they're hungry, are very grumpy. And it's boring as fuck. It's really dull. And then like 0.1% of the time, you'll be punching somebody in the head. And the rest of the time, you're not. So that's how it works in the real world. I know it's a facile point to make, but I honestly think a lot of what we've got now is actually, it's not just social media, it's also video games and TV. So people's idea of what violence is, how it plays out, and what it can achieve is really warped. And then for some other reason that I don't know, the people in authority are letting all this happen. They're just going, oh, okay, let the kids, let them do it. I'm like, why? Why are you doing that?
It gives them more of a reason to bring in the guns. I think as you were speaking about this, I think a really good analogy as well is, you know, how if a kid slips and hurts himself, like a 5-year-old kid bumbles around because he's trying to pick up a leaf and he just scratches his knee. And what you're supposed to do is not react to him falling, because the moment you go, oh, are you okay? The kid starts going, what do you mean? And then he starts crying and bawling, his face is all swollen. And here's the thing, he's going to end up the same as if no one reacted. If not, he's going to end up even fucking worse, because now he acknowledges the reaction to the actual bruising of his knee. And I think social media is very similar. It's like the kid falls down and you'll probably end up okay, but apology, you know, do the thing. And it's become this performative act of everybody monkey see, monkey do of the reactionary spectacle. And then the kid is freaking out way more than he should have in the first place. But then physically, he's exactly the same as if no one reacted.
So kids look to adults to find meaning in the world when they're very, very small. They're constantly doing stuff and then looking at the nearest adult to see what it means. Can I play with this rock? Yes. Can I put it in my mouth? No. Can I pick up this ball? Yes. Can I throw the ball into the road where the cars are? No. And so this is how the superego is formed. It's through doing this. It's through looking up at the adults. And you're right. There has been, for a generation, there's been a problem. It wasn't my generation. Generation X didn't get treated this way, but your generation got helicopter parenting and this kind of weird child worship scenario. And if the kids couldn't do the exams, we'll just make the exams easier. This is not me being a grumpy old man, by the way. This is literally what has happened in the last 20 years. They actually changed the rules on the exams for 18-year-olds, which is high school, right, in America. The year after I did my exam to make it easier because the kids were stressed out because people didn't like it. And you just think, okay, what are we doing? Like, if you're better at the 100-meter race than me, do we hobble you so that I don't feel bad? Or do we just let you be better at the 100-meter race? It's like, so, but my point is everything has gone in this direction. This is not conspiracy theory. This is absolutely verifiable fact. So we're lowering the standards so you don't have to do as much to get what you want. Meanwhile, we're provoking people's appetites so that they're broader and broader and broader. The level of satiation is higher and higher. Year on year, people need more and more stimulation to feel satiated.
Yo, massive. I never thought about that. You're right. Okay. So what Richard's saying here, if I can translate this correctly, is when you give everyone the same amount of award and reward, people are subconsciously already programmed to achieve something. So when everybody is at baseline achieving the same exact thing, the scale to do anything, to receive any sort of reward is so much higher because if everybody gets the same participation trophy, everyone's at the same level, but we're naturally programmed. We want to do better. So we have to expand our hunger and our appetite and accomplishment, which is why we have such outlandish spectacle and people doing too much.
Well, didn't you tell me that with music, there are levels in music, and then over the last 20 years, the volume on every level has gone up and up and up till the music is just screaming at you now.
Yeah, it's called the loudness wars. So imagine like music back then would have the up and down and the volumes, quiet parts and then loud parts, quiet down. Now everything is one big like undynamic thing. So the quiet parts are even boosted as loud as the loud parts. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yes.
There's no dynamics. It's just one chunk.
The way you described it to me at your apartment, I think you actually had a music program open and you said you can see the levels, or you used to be able to break down a track and see the levels doing this, and now they're all just at their fucking peak.
Yeah. So guys, imagine like a sound wave, right? So you have like Nirvana is a great example. Hey, wait, and then it just like quiet. But nowadays we make the music so it's the sound waves are like this through the whole thing, and even the quiet parts are like blasted in your
ear. Yeah. So that was a perfect example of how everybody has to dial up their volume to get heard. And I was going to make the Candace Owens point about not only is everybody rewarded the same, but one way of getting rewarded is by claiming to be oppressed. So I don't know if she coined the term, but she uses the term the oppression Olympics a lot.
Yeah, that's the common term nowadays.
But what can we expect when you set the rules of the game like this? Of course, people are going to compete that way. And that was when I left the education system as a student in 1996 and then went back into work in it in 2004. And the difference was huge in just 8 years. Everybody had a mental health disorder. Everybody had some kind of a disability. Everybody needed something, some prop, something that would help them get through the exam, or the exam would be rated like 10% higher based on their score because of the condition that they had. And this was across the board. And I was like, fucking hell, where's all that? Maybe it was already there in 96, but I went to a private school where if you said anything like that, the teachers would just punch you to death.
So when you give everyone a trophy so they can feel special, you're actually making people feel completely unspecial.
The generational problem now, if I could say, I think it's different with Gen Z. Gen Z, I think, is hacking. Maybe this is my malignant optimism. I think I've spoken to so many Gen Zers who have seen this and they're not having it. They've seen through all this. So you're exactly nobody. If everybody's special, nobody's special. If everybody's a narcissist, nobody's a narcissist. If everybody's a winner, nobody's a fucking winner. That's malignant egalitarianism. That's communism. So your self-esteem as the little dominance hierarchy climbing entity you are as a mammal is ruined. Your sense of self is meaningless. So your entitlement goes up, your resilience goes down, your self-worth is on the floor, but your hunger for narcissistic supply is at what the generation millennials, which I include myself in, I include we're all millennials. We're not craving high quality nutrition. We're all craving sugar. We're all craving junk. I don't want to be recognized by a few good people for this authentic piece of work I've done. I want 1 million followers to like my dumb post for a second. That's what I want. That's sugar. That's fat. That's not a healthy, nutritious, meaningful, calorie giving meal that's going to help me to survive. And that's the addiction. That's where we're at.
Yes. So a lot of the argument for participation trophies is like people don't end up doing anything. They feel narcissistic. It's actually much worse than that because it's ridding people of individuality, any type of something that you can build your self-esteem on healthily, your sense and the social hierarchy, these formidable things that every human being should have. And then when you throw all of those things out the water, it's just a fucking chaotic mess. So like what you were saying about that really rampant, egotistical, narcissistic behavior, they have to do that, not because for the reason of they have a participation trophy, so therefore they feel special. No, it's actually because they don't feel special at all because everybody got the trophy, which means that they have to boost themselves up so fucking high from that the millionth like because they have a G-string on or whatever the hell. And it's still not enough to satiate.
No, it's still not. So to use the vernacular of your generation, they're thirsty as fuck. They grow up thirsty attention whores, everyone. The ironic thing about all this, you say, it's communist, it's socialist, it's left-leaning, it's for the SJWs, the malignant egalitarians. Marx wasn't for that, Marx
Really?
was, nope. He knew there were individuals. He knew that people had individual strengths and weaknesses. You're supposed to create a scenario where you could work to your individual strengths and weaknesses. He hated the way that factories, capitalist-run factories in London, which is where he formed, that's where his grievance came from, was being in London and seeing the deprivation of working class and sub-working class people in London. And he said, no, the way that these factories are turning people, the word robot wasn't around, turning people into machines, into robots, it's dehumanizing. His Marxism was to bring humanity back to the working man. But these people have kind of missed that. It's like the way people misinterpret Nietzsche to be like, oh no, it's all Nazism and it's just survival of the fittest. No. Oh no, it's all nihilism. No. Nietzsche was anti-nihilistic. He was dead against it. But we remember things funny, especially if you use a lot of long words and it takes a long time you've got to be intelligent to imbibe it. But Marx was not for that at all. He wasn't for making everybody the same. It wasn't literally make everybody the same thing. It was if you had strength, you work that strength.
Would you say he was just trying to level it out enough so that it wasn't that crazy disparity?
I think to use terms, and I'm going to say this semi-ironically, to use terms that we can all get, I'm going to do the JP thing, the Jordan Peterson thing. He was for equality of opportunity more than he was for equality of outcome.
Okay.
But his sort of suggestion, the manifesto for how we get there, was just woefully fucking naive. I mean, it's absurd. If you actually read it, it's like, what sci-fi novel is this fucking lifted from, my man? He's obviously very bright. Marx and Engels, super bright guys, but they never, I don't think they worked. I don't think they were just intellectuals. So I don't think they really knew human nature. I think they knew their version from afar of what human nature is. So I think it's not quite equality of opportunity. That's a little bit unfair, but he definitely was not for equality of outcome. You're all just going to be the same thing. That's not Marx. That's not Marx.
You know, so yesterday,
Marx, by the way, sorry, Pierre.
Yeah, so yesterday I went on another live stream and I was just kind of bored, so I decided to get a little more spicier in my trips, and I went a little bit further than the general city center of Prague. I actually think it's a really interesting stream. It was yesterday, yeah. And I went to the commie blocks, the Panelaks, the communist gray Lego blocks, in those areas. And I haven't really explored these neighborhoods very much because, I mean, they're commie blocks. You know, I mean, how interesting can that really be? But it was actually super fucking interesting being in the city center with all these like bohemian buildings everywhere and just beautiful nature and river, and then just 20 minutes. The opposite of the river is just structures, rectangular, at the same height and the same energy. And before they repainted everything pretty colors, pretty neon colors to make it more fun, it was all gray before. The same exact blocks for kilometers, man. And I think when we talk about communism and this type of malignant egalitarianism and things like that, it's really hard to conceptualize. But I think actually looking at the architecture and the buildings is a great physical representation of what occurs. They purposely built function over form buildings that completely rid of aesthetics that are huge, imposing, gray and concrete for fucking miles. And every single place has the same exact amenities and all of it. And when you walk into these things, you can feel the spirits and these oppressed ghosts just ruminating over the area. It's really eerie and spooky to walk. And I guarantee if you asked anybody, you guys want to live in one of those things, or would you rather live something like in, you know, what a modern world would maybe have? I don't think people would just naturally choose concrete block that looks the same for miles. And the funny part about all of this, the buildings got more and more depressing as I kept going and kept going. Then it became abandoned, like rusted pillars or columns of just glass tainted steel. And then I go a little bit further and I see life and I'm like, oh shit, that's a Tesco. Wait a minute, that's a beautiful fountain. That's a fucking mall. I ended up through the trenches of communism and then ended up at the peak of Western capitalism at the very end. And it's crazy because these two plazas are right next to each other. People lived in communism here, and then right next to it was a renovated Tesco, full of life, beautiful fountain, trees everywhere. And you guys want to see the visual representation of which one is actually better. As much as I am a critic of relentless Western capitalism, I would much rather spend my time at the fucking Tesco in this beautiful fountain where there's like kids and like fucking moms pushing the strollers around and you can buy anything you want than live in this fucking Pontiac with piece of bread and shoe leather for dinner, you know?
We should film there, and we should get some drone shots there as well.
I'm down, dude. It's super crazy, super trippy, man.
We should do something on creeping communism, malignant egalitarianism. We'll take some drone shots there.
Yeah,
it's these historical mistakes have been made again and again, and I kind of think, you know, it's kind of a trick, really. I think we can say, you know, I probably shouldn't say this publicly because people take it the wrong way, but we've never really had communism. I'm not a communist. I'm not a defender of Marx. I think it's an appalling idea, but we've never really had it. That's one thing I agree with the Marxists and the communists when this is their defense. They're like, communism, yeah, let's try it. We've never had it. We can never have it. But That's because the point I wanted to make was this is Marx misinterpreted and used, not just misinterpreted. No, I take that back. That's a woefully naive statement. Used, deliberately misinterpreted. But what was the trick? The trick was working class people. Why did it spread? Why did it do so well as an ideology? It spread to multiple countries across the globe, which is why America was so paranoid about it, because it was like, fucking hell, it's everywhere. It's this infection. In the same way that Nazism was. There were Egyptian Nazis, there were Muslim Nazis, there were African Nazis. It was global. It was global. But they did the same trick. The communists and Nazis did the same trick. They said to the working class people, to the majority, listen, brothers and sisters, you've been stepped on, haven't you? They hurt you, didn't they? Join us. We will have vengeance and we'll lead you to a new world. Tell me that isn't being repeated right now.
Yes, because that ideology is quite tempting and delicious when you do see heavy inequality with people sipping on their Chardonnay while their shrimp cocktails are slithering up their nostrils. When you're below that, all you have is just yeast and no bread. Obviously, the idea of equalizing the playing field sounds tremendous.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's concrete blocks for miles while you have the same inequality up at the top.
And death, atrocity, the worst things we can possibly imagine, the limits of the human imagination, which you don't want to spend more than 10 minutes looking at the reality of what really went down in the name of these ideologies. I mean, it makes war and hostile look like a fucking cartoon. It's just insane depravity because people felt justified. They dehumanized the opposition and they said, these are the bad guys. We know who this is what Nietzsche warned of. It's called, pardon my French, ressentiment, not resentment. It's beyond resentment. It's called ressentiment. And it's, you identify the source of your pain. And it's that tribe over there. And we're going to get them, boys. And once we've got them and we take back what they stole from us, there'll be a golden age and we'll be kings. And then that's when the raping and the killing and the murdering and the genocide and the torture and the concentration camps get started. And this seems to be a similar moment in history, I think.
Yes, I saw a comment on one of my videos, and it was a back and forth in one of my comment threads. And one of them said, hey, I don't want to name the country, I don't want to freak people out, but hey, this is happening right now in a very big country, this fall towards dictatorial communism. I see it now. And then somebody's arguing, obviously from the West, and trying to defend it, like, no, it's not the same. Like, are you stupid? Da, da, da. And then she goes, I'm 66 years old and I lived in the Eastern Bloc, and I can tell you that it's repeating right now in certain places around the world. And then the person is just like, no, that's different. And it's like their life experience is just from fucking looking at a goddamn article from some jaded journalist about whatever communism really is, while this person lived in the fucking Eastern Bloc for the first half of their lives, couldn't eat anything, you know?
They're still alive. The people who survived it, they're still here. They're still amongst us. It's not that long ago. It's not like one of the guy who ran the gym. He's the same age as me. He grew up in the Eastern Bloc, he lived through actual communism. There's my ex-girlfriend's parents. They lived through. Well, it wasn't too. They were fond of it, but Tito's Yugoslavia. It was absolutely military enforced socialism. They're still here. So I think when they tell us, they're the good canaries in the coal mine. Like if they're saying, hey guys, we saw this before, doesn't end well. I think we should listen to them, not some fucking 22-year-old blogger who's got his ideas from, as you say, like this, journalists, the alleged journalism, which seems to be a dying fucking profession at the moment.
Yeah, these people have the context to actually understand it. The people that are the bloggers have no fucking context to understand it. And it's crazy. Just all you need to do, it actually did shake me to go there yesterday and just be like, wow, the feeling here is so different from the city center, and it's imposing.
Have you been to the Communism Museum in Prague?
No, but I heard.
Let's go.
Let's go, but like I heard that it was like I think it was some American dude that started a fucking museum and like profited off of it in Prague. So I think it's like
Really?
American. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I heard though.
This big dog.
Yeah, he just, of course, like the American comes over to capitalize on the idea of communism in it.
It's a pretty cool museum. Yeah, we should. It's not huge. It's not a massive one.
Yeah, we can check it out. I think it'd be interesting.
We should have a look. We didn't really cover FOMO, did we?
Yeah, we'll just change the title of it, man. Like this was the title because this was actually really interesting.
Okay. Should we take some questions from the people?
Yes, one of them I'll highlight right now. I realize that I can do it too. It's a big question, but I'm gonna throw it up there because I like it. Oh wait, where is it? I have two of the chat logs open. It's above. Give me 1 second here. Oh, here it is. But what are we supposed to do? Because capitalism is also awful.
I don't say let's do nothing, but sometimes doing nothing is the best thing to do.
You want to know my approach? Be Robin Hood. Utilize whatever's there to your advantage while it's still here. You know what I mean? If you live in that capitalistic structure, do what you can within it to bring yourself up, you know?
Yeah, I think you should, as individuals, we should do what we can. If you're asking what's the best modality, capitalism isn't awful. What we have right now is fucking awful. It's a disgrace. It's disgusting what we have right now. But this isn't really capitalism. So in the same way that communism has never really been done, true capitalism is not being done right now. This is totally immoral, repugnant, depraved, cronyist consumer capitalism, riddled with greed, object fetishism. I mean, it's appalling. There's no boundaries. It's an infantile, narcissistic, psychopathic version of capitalism. Capitalism really is the best system. I mean, it's not perfect, and it's always going to be open to exploitation because you have to have freedom. You have to have freedom for capitalism to function. But we could be doing so much better. We could be doing so much better.
I think it needs a different name. Would you say consumerism is more fitting?
I'm not a fan of consumerism.
Yeah, no. That's what I mean.
What we have now. Well, we would have to get. I reached out, by the way, to a guy who runs a philosophy channel. He's a young man, but he's very well read. So where me and you are going, I think this philosophy says this. We should bring him on, and he can show us exactly what Kierkegaard said and what. So that would be good. We should probably get an economist on to explain that. But there really isn't any other option other than capitalism. There really isn't. There is no other. Communism is not an option. If you penetrate communism, which isn't easy. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes years to get to wrap. I think, because maybe I'm not that bright. I don't know. My brain doesn't function very well in politics. But it's actually just knockable. There is no version of communism that we can have in 2020. We can have socialist policies. We can have within capitalism. We can have capitalism and have some socialist policies there, but true communism is like, it's a fantasy. It's a total fantasy that we're completely ignorant of human nature. It's a naive sci-fi wank fantasy.
Yeah. I agree, especially in a larger society as well. I mean, there is the option to live on a fucking commune, and if you want to see communism at what it can work out as, and you can figure out a situation within a small commune and share the resources, and it works for you, go for it. That's not how I want to really.
I'm much more cynical than you, Pierre. I would have said, yes, please go and live on a commune and see how quickly it breaks down. I think one of the best representations we've had of this is The Beach by Alex Garland. The film was a pretty good adaptation as well with Leonardo DiCaprio, and you just end up with capitalism through the back door, run by a narcissistic psychopath. All communes go this way. All Facebook groups go this way. They're communes. That's a community. It's free. You've all got a common interest. You all just want to share information about narcissism or share information about vaping or bodybuilding. And what happens? You have a hierarchy run by a bunch of cunts.
I was gonna try to instill a bit of hope in whoever didn't want to be a part of the system.
You do that bullshit.
But no, you're completely right, man. There have been multiple examples of small communes just disintegrating. Fuck, I've seen it from online communities that I've been a part of.
Well, you've got online communities, and you see it's
the hierarchy just naturally comes together. Popular kids, some people have a say, some people are angry with the top, and it disintegrates the whole thing. People break off, do their own shit. People are doing this to fuck somebody else over this, and it's like, dude, what the fuck? This is just a small ass community, man.
Right. Or watch The Walking Dead. I mean, it's not great, it's not very well written, but I do think that's a fair representation of what you see in The Walking Dead is primitive. It's what Marx called primitive communism. And what happens? Well, some big psychopath comes along and says, I like your commune. I think I'm going to take half of everything you've got. And if you don't like it, I will physically mutilate and murder and rape you. I'm sorry, kids, that's humans.
Yep. SF here says, do you believe that the system in Scandinavia is better? Do they always get high ratings on the happiness index?
I've lived in Sweden, so I only know Sweden as far as Scandinavia goes. It has the feeling of a much more adult country. It feels like a country populated by adults and run by adults, and you're trusted to be an adult there.
I agree, and I think that there's a big inherent cultural element to that situation, and it just works well with the politics. Like, could that same system work in the States with the culture that is in the States? I don't know necessarily. I mean, this is not my topic of expertise for sure, but
people raise Scandinavia like it's like they're socialist countries. They're still capitalist countries. They're not that different to America and the United Kingdom. I mean, if you compared the Scandinavian countries to UK, Canada, and America, and Soviet Russia, there is no fucking comparison. I mean, people say, oh, it's like by American standards, they're like, God damn it, they're a bunch of socialist commies. And it's like, it's capitalism, guys. You're free to do what you want. You keep your money. You are taxed, but it's not a different system. It's not like it's. Yeah,
I mean, be fair, like, if anybody moved to Sweden, you wouldn't even see a damn difference other than the fact that people look like Vikings. It's cold as shit and you get taxed a bit more, but then you see the taxes go back in the city. So it's like...
They're beautiful there. My God. It's so humiliating being there. It just...
Dude, I feel like shit, dude.
By Viking god with a beard.
Dude, I thought I had a pretty secure sense of self-worth when it came to how I looked physically. And then I went to Sweden and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? What did these people eat, man? What the hell?
Beautiful. Beautiful. And intelligent. And their culture works. Bunch of cunts.
Yeah, no. Fuck their socialism. I don't want to be a part of it. Let's see here. Please go ahead and answer or ask any questions, or if you have any spicy opinions. Oh, here's one. Since NPD and antisocial personalities can't be cured realistically, and the larger society is both, what should people do? Seems solutionless.
It's just a phase. It's just a thing that we're going through. If you look at how quickly humans move, look at what frantic, busy little creatures we are. If you imagine you're looking at an anthill and everything that goes on and the busyness there, we'll look at humanity from above like that. Look at the way the world was in 1980 compared to now. That's 40 years ago. It's nothing in terms of history. You evolve zero amount in 40 years. Look at the way we were in the 1800s, then compare that to the 1300s. We're busy little creatures. We change very, very rapidly. This is a phase that we're going through, and I do think there's another side to this. I think we've probably had a fairly shit 10 years. I think from 2010 till now has been quite tough. I don't think it's going to last. I think we've passed through the worst of it and we're coming out of it now, which is why we can have conversations like this. That's evidence of something. And you're watching it. That's evidence of something.
I think you're right. I think it's a phase. It's, breaching out of adolescence to adulthood collectively. And I think that as terrible as cancel culture is, I'm not into it, but it seems like a lot of these people, or a lot of this movement is aimed towards narcissism, through narcissism, obviously, but it does say something about the collective consciousness and how we could be really sick of this type of NPD that's really prevalent. This is the unhealthy side of the rejection, but on the healthy side of the rejection, we have conversations like this and people are interested. People watch Rogan's podcast, the biggest fucking thing, until he changed the whole thing to look like a goddamn toaster or whatever the hell. And now no one is really into it. But yeah, it's like because of the rampant narcissism that is everywhere, people are kind of fiending for the more level-headed discussions on the healthy end of the spectrum.
I think so. And when it sounds like such a trite point to make, but whenever we talk about people waking up or becoming more conscious or red pilling or whatever else, what is it that precedes the awakening? Pain, suffering, dukkha leads to some kind of opening, and like, oh, that really sucked when we went over there and we did that. Do you remember when we did that? Yeah, that was shitty in the end. We thought it'd be good, but it sucked. Some people take longer to realize that it's sucking, not just for them, but for everybody. But then when they do, they readjust. They navigate away from it.
This goes hand in hand with what you just said. Hope is right around the corner in a way, yes, because like you said, it takes either a massive psychedelic trip, which includes trauma, or straight trauma to really start objectively rationalizing where the right route is to go.
Well, and let me make another point here where I'll tell you it will definitely get better, and there's a biological reason for it. Many of the god-awful, evil people who are making it as bad as it is, because it doesn't need to be this bad, will be dead soon. They're old. They'll be dead soon. They're keeping us back in a nightmare that's early 19th century nightmare. It's some weird fantasy psychopath fetish nipple twist torture chamber but they'll be dead soon. They'll all be dead soon. Within 5 years, 10 years. Within 5 years, they'll be in the nursing home, and then within 10 years, they'll be in the ground. So this is the good thing about humanity. There's that sci-fi movie I've cited a couple of times with Tom Cruise. It didn't do very well, but I really like it, called Live, Die, Repeat. It was also released under another name called Something Tomorrow. That's humanity. We go asleep, we wake up, we get a chance to do the day again. We go asleep, we die, we wake up, we're born again, we get a chance to do the day again. We all die, and then we have kids, and they get a chance to do it again. I think the youngers are going to do better than this because they've seen how fucking shit and wank this is. We're under the auspices of a wanky shit demon right now.
Yeah, I will say, obviously, there's a bunch of turmoil, and I think a lot of values are misaligned, but it still seems within the younger generations that even though they can be quite whiny, I feel like that world would be a bit better than the last ones, because the last ones, how many world wars have we fucking put ourselves through?
Yeah. You would need some sort of ideological tyranny to stop things from getting better, because we have the internet now. We're all communicating around the world. We've got people from all different backgrounds watching this right now. The information is flowing. That could be stopped. Maybe we could go into some sort of Stalinist, Hitler-esque scenario, but I don't know that that's particularly likely. And if it was, it wouldn't last. It might last another generation.
I think you have a point there. if that does happen, it will. I don't think it's possible for it to have the over-encompassing, imposing force that it did
No.
70 years ago, because there's too much information, too much. Everything's too connected.
Yeah.
It could happen in little pockets and in phases elsewhere, but the way that how certain countries took over entire land masses in the last millennium, I don't think it's possible to go back to that scale.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, there was. I was talking to a mate of mine, who's ex-British forces, and we were talking about a new lockdown, riots, and then I was saying there aren't enough police in this country, in the United Kingdom, to police the scale of riots they would see. And he said, "What if they use the army?" I said, "The army's not big enough, and the army won't do what they want them to do, because the army is comprised of citizens who have this in their pockets and they watch stuff like this and they're all watching conspiracy theory stuff. They're not faceless drones. They're just people. And they is there going to be the problem with the system that the system has, that the elites have now, is that the story is breaking down and nobody believes it anymore. Not really. There's a few nutters and truly ideologically infected people. But most people are looking at this now and going, "What? Really? What?" Like, who die hard believes in the story of 2020 without wanting to say the word? I don't know anybody who out and out believes it anymore.
Perfect segue again. Yep, information revolution, post-academia era, empowerment via information. What about pseudo-information empowerment? Like we think we know stuff. I will, what I think about here is that it's a phase into finally maybe perhaps finding the actual truth. Because again, we're finally at a level where we're collectively trying to question what the hell is happening, whether it be alternative news sources. And most people don't really buy the mainstream narrative, no matter what political leaning you're on. Everyone has their own narrative that they might have formed, but it does go in opposition with whatever mainstream narrative it is. And I think this might just be a undeniable phase for people to go through before they actually might come to a reasonable conclusion from both ends. But I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely. You said a reasonable a phase. I would say it's evolution. We're crawling out of the mud, and you're crawling out of the mud, June. I'm crawling out. Richard is crawling out of the mud. Pierre's crawling out of the mud. And we're going, "Oh shit, we don't have to do this. We have choices. We don't have to use social media the way we're using it. We could actually have authentic, intellectual, academically rigorous and polite debate." I mean, put it in the comments. How many people want that? I bet you the thirst for authenticity is through the fucking roof. The thirst for a place where you could debate, but there'd be rules like you must cite your source and you have to read the source before you cite the fucker as well. We could see, at my most optimistic, I would say this could lead to an online revolution where we all become, not all, many of us choose to become way more rigorous in our thinking and way more data focused, way more science focused again.
Yeah, so a lot of people obviously want it. And I think it's really a big disservice if we don't acknowledge the fact that actually a lot of people want it.
Yeah.
Even people that could be in inherent echo chambers, generally people do want it and they want to share the ideas.
What band was it, folks? Or you might know. Was it The Clash who sang "The Public Wants What the Public Gets"?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Somebody tell, is that I think it's The Clash. Maybe not The Clash. Someone, please help me. The public wants what the public gets. So you feed them shit and they just get shit. But I thought this since I was a kid. Like when I first studied NLP, I was naive, young student. I was going to work in the probation service. I was like, I'm going to change the jam. Thank you, everybody. Going Underground is the song. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if I don't hurry up, because I used to want to be a director. If I don't hurry up and make a film about how if you change your thoughts and you can change how you feel and it changes your actions and changes your reality, this will be the new thing. I better jump on this coming wave. You know how many films they made? 0. No one. And I was like, oh, I really believed that I was at the cutting edge of a wave where we were like, we have solutions. Everybody's going to embrace the solution. And I was like, and then I got older and I realized, no, human nature is not like that. Human nature is we don't naturally lean that way. You really have to present it. You have to sell it to people. You have to spin it. You have to present it. But there is a taste for that. There is a genuine hunger for that. And I think that what they've done, who is they, is they flooded the zone with shite. And it brings the level of consciousness down instead of raising it up. But there's a counterexample. Look at there's good documentaries on Netflix. There's good independent made documentaries. I've had more recommendations for documentaries in the last 6 months than I have for TV shows and series. So there is a taste. There is a hunger for that.
Completely. And, you know, in even the small niche that I embody, one of the biggest niches on YouTube within my field is commentary channels. The commentary channels shifted from emotional, insulting content just because they hate somebody. And now the commentary content is actually, there's a bit of value. Things are kind of viewed a bit more objectively. There's factual sources that are cited. There's even philosophical perspective or psychological analysis nowadays too with this type of content. So things are slowly shifting. I think the biggest change in terms of the age of information, because before it was like, here is your narrative and you have it now. Now it's, here are multiple narratives and you can either choose to believe one of them, which you might fall down the echo chamber, but that narrative often questions the others. So there is at least the intellectual ambiguity that comes from questioning stuff in our current generation.
Yeah. The understanding that there is nuance, the understanding that you're probably not going to grasp the entirety of a scenario inside of a 15-second news headline. And if you think you have, you probably haven't.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest change, is the fact that before people just brought into one. At least now there are so many different nuances that we're aware of. And this is part of the mud, the mud that we're climbing out of. We're sifting through everything finally. Before we thought it was soap. Before we thought the mud was soap. But now we're actually like, oh shit, we actually have to take the mud off and we have to figure out the spots that we can't reach, sort of a thing.
Yeah, but the one thing that I should reiterate with, you know, coming out of the mud and wanting things to be a little bit more academic again and rigorous and data based. Nobody's going to do it for us, folks. It's us. There's 566 people watching right now. It's only us. It's this small group of people, or it's no one. If you have the attitude, oh yeah, I'm looking forward to when other people do that, it's not going to happen. We have to do it. We are the ones. There isn't anybody else. Nobody's coming to save us.
And I'm going to ask the chat, do you go out to research further through things to find out more about a topic? Because I will guarantee a lot of our audience does. Yeah. And that shows that there actually are a lot of people that are willing to put that effort.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've noticed with like Instagram posts and Facebook arguments and all the rest of it. I'm like, you're literally on the internet making this argument. You just have to open another tab.
Right.
At least read the Wikipedia page. God damn.
I know, right?
Take 2 minutes to scan the first fucking part of Wikipedia on this subject, please. Save yourself the embarrassment.
Yeah, man. Like even just reading the end of an article where it totally disproves the fucking headline.
Seriously. I actually think that if you do that, if you read the abstract, and who can really read the methodology unless you're a statistician? Read the abstract, read the results. I keep meaning to do this on my channel and just say to people, this is how easy it is. Just read the abstract, then go. That takes like 2 minutes. Go to the bottom, read the results. If it's a psychology paper, that's all you need to do most of the time. Unless you're writing a meta-analysis of the methodology. It's not that hard. It's not that, doesn't matter the subject, because they're not supposed to obfuscate the findings. That means you won't get published. You're supposed to make it plain enough that somebody of average intelligence can grasp, so that you're not being covert. You're being open. That's the idea. And you should do that with the data that's coming out on the beast of 2020.
And if at least maybe just look up one other video that contrasts the thing that you just watched. Right. At least the very bare minimum is to at least absorb maybe one video that contrasts the last 10 that you watched. If you want to start there, it's just good to know what that other side might say, even though they might be totally fucking false, but it's good to just at least be open to that.
Absolutely. I love doing that. I probably listen to more right wingers than left wingers, because I'm like, I don't want to hear what I already think. That doesn't make me think. That's just you jerking me off. I'm like, oh yeah, go on, Chomsky, finish me off. I listen to Shapiro. I listen to Douglas Murray. I listen to.
You really think he's better at it?
Go on, Shapiro. Tell me about that wet ass P word. Wet ass P word. Have you watched his analysis?
Yes, I have.
Fuck me. I actually spoke to my wife. She's a doctor, so she said that this is a condition. These women clearly have vaginitis, and they should seek medical attention as soon as possible.
And it's good to know that some people think like that sometimes, man.
God bless him. God bless him. I really like listening to him. I don't agree with a ton of what he says, but just to hear like an intelligent person speak, even if they're quirky and eccentric and whatever, they believe in what they're saying and they put it forward, and it's not, I understand what you're saying, and it doesn't feel like you're being covert and making implications. You're just saying what you think. I like that. I like listening to.
I mean, Rogan. Did you see the Duncan Trussell Rogan podcast, the last one in LA?
Oh,
it's 5 hours long. I've finished the whole thing. I finished the whole 5-hour thing in parts, but there was a whole segment where Rogan starts drinking. Oh, they're both drinking, and they just start going off on Shapiro. Duncan Trussell is like, dude, that dude's a dork. And Rogan's like, oh, come on. He's a sweetie. I fucking love that guy. And the thing is, Rogan and Shapiro have really, really differentiating beliefs to a lot of shit. But Rogan only had positive things to say about him. And he's coming from the complete opposite end on top of that. So it's always endearing to see something like that.
It's good because it kind of harkens back to a time when there was this cogent thing called America. These cogent people called Americans who were proud of their nation. And we used to enjoy mocking them for it. Like, oh, these fucking patriotic Americans. Now we're looking back with fondness going, Jesus, guys, get it together. And you would differ, but you still loved the country. This is not true now. This is just not the case. And this is why a lot of people are sort of sounding the alarm and going, excuse me, guys, now we're moving into dangerous territory. If you can agree that the Americans are good and that America is a good place to be, you can move forward. If you stop believing that and you believe that your opposition is like the worst human scum imaginable and not even worth debating, we're falling off the edge of a cliff, man. There's no coming back from that.
Even on my stream today, I had a discussion about America as usual. And obviously, I can be very, very critical of the entire fucking nation. But I thought about it and I thought, actually, I would say I am an embodiment of the key principles of what America is supposed to be. I'm a self-made entrepreneur. I'm in pop culture. I'm a public figure. I can be very self-absorbed and loud at times. There's marketing, but also I embody the diversity that I grew up around. I've attributed different mannerisms from all the different cultures that I was surrounded by, and I'm all for ultimate freedom and liberty and all of those things. But now those key principles that I'm apparently embodying are now cancerous. I have to behave exactly the ethnicity that I'm supposed to be born with. The one of the greatest things, in my opinion, that made America really awesome was the fact that there is a sense of cultural sharing amongst each other. A bunch of people from different places go to a melting pot and they share. You know, that's what I grew up with. And I'm really proud to embody this. And that idea of cultural diversity has been skewed to something so incredibly cancerous and segregated now. The whole entrepreneurship thing and the money situation is really difficult. And all of these things that made the key principles of America really awesome are just very, very different in today's current climate.
Yeah, very different. It's interesting you use the word segregation instead of division. I thought you were going to say division, but
it is segregated too, though. Like racial people are moving that way too, and it's just fucking scary.
But where are the calls for segregation coming from? They're not coming from the right and the white. They're coming from a place that we never ever thought that they would or should come from, which is really, really frightening. It really frightens me.
Yeah, and it's insane because the narrative that I'll get from certain types of people is like, I have to act exactly the skin color that I am. And I'm like, wait a minute. What I loved about being about this place is I could be everybody, you know? Fuck.
I'm not sure what that would mean for me if somebody said to me, you have to act white, especially if I was in America. Please be more white American or Californian. I'll be like, oh, get a baseball cap and a black shirt. Do you want to come and play basketball, bro? That might be cultural appropriation now. Do you want to drink some craft beers, bro? I don't know what. Tell me, what am I supposed to do? This is what we've discussed this on here before. This is what always used to make me laugh when I would watch like the prison movies in America and Oz, where the whites go with the whites and everybody's in their own thing. And if there'll be scenes like if you are white and you're in the Aryan nation and you act too black, then you could get stabbed by your own guys. And I was like, wow, that's fucking fascinating. But that's prison. That's like an extremely violent environment where we have to tribally protect and micromanage everything that we have. So is prison turning into America now? Sorry, is America turning into a giant fucking violent jail now?
You should have seen the fucking middle school down the street. It was constructed just like a fucking prison when I lived. God damn.
I'm looking forward to the day when somebody tells me to act whiter. Please be more.
I'll tell you, dude. I'll tell you. But you know, but it's different because you're British. You know what I mean? You have a bit more leeway. Like you know, you can just exaggerate the accent a bit more.
Okay, I'm terribly sorry. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this scenario. How awkward for everybody, including me. In America, yeah, that gets me out of everything. It's interesting what you said because like the idea of a cultural diversity, it's changed meanings, but there was a time, as you said, where it meant something that was about unity, whereas now it means something that's about division. And maybe that's the lens that we need to be looking at the world in. We say, is this person about unity or are they about division? And so maybe we should be careful of the people who are all about division and neo segregation, as you said, instead of division. I think that is the right term to use, sadly, at this time.
Yeah, I think that's a great lens to look at things. If a person's willing to purposely divide and segregate, and even interactions, you can tell by how somebody moves and talks and speaks to you in that way. It's not a good person to be around.
It's funny actually. Now that I've said it, I'm trying to remember whether it was Oz. I think it was Oz with the Aryan nation, where they actually punished the guy. They cut him because when he was talking, he was using his hands too much and he was gesturing too broadly. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, or if you know the film that's from, where the white guys are saying, don't do this when you're talking because that's not white. And they start, and it's a real micromanaging of race and behavior. And I'm just thinking, God, it is getting a bit like that now. Like if I say, I'm not supposed to wear these glasses or I'm not supposed to wear this t-shirt, or
if this is the fucking narrative, I'm fucked. Like I can't. What am I supposed to do? Like, if I speak a certain fucking way, I'm too white because of how this. If I speak this other way, I'm too black because of this. If I wear colored contacts, I'm too this grace. If I wear the braids, I'm appropriating this. If I'm wearing fucking rock and roll shit, I'm appropriating another thing. Dude, it's like, if this becomes the narrative, then just wipe me off the fucking earth, because
you specifically are fucked.
I am walking appropriation, dude. You know, you can look at it two ways. I am a walking embodiment of diversity, or I'm walking appropriation. Either way, if that's the narrative that gets painted, then I'm fucked. I'm fucked.
Yeah. It's these are not sincere points. It's either Brett Weinstein or Eric Weinstein is talking a lot at the moment in terms of criticism in good faith and criticism in bad faith. So if I say to you, Pierre, the way you're handling your money or the way you're running your business, you're losing money. Please try this. That's criticism in good faith. I want you to make more money. There's criticism in bad faith where the person who is offering the critique doesn't want you to get better. They want you gone. They want you fucking gone. They don't just want what's best for you. They want you away. And we should recognize that and ignore those people. We have to say, you're not criticizing in good faith here. You're criticizing in bad faith. This isn't, your agenda is not to make me better or the nation better. You just want it gone.
I never put it into words like the way that you did, but I think you're right. I think trying to discern whether something is in good or bad faith comes from, and usually you have an intuitive feeling when you know somebody's trying to give you advice from bad faith, because the way that I look at it is, if I follow 3 more steps of their advice, does it lead to wiping me off the face of the earth? And usually it does.
Right.
And I don't want that conclusion.
Yeah, you're not down for that because you have a sense of something called self-preservation, which is a funny thing, because it's like we've all lost that sense of self-preservation now. We're not defending. We've become so ashamed and so humiliated, as Yuri Brezhnev says, is the first phase of the psychological warfare attack. We're so ashamed of who we are. We're so humiliated by our story and our nations and our history. We don't defend anything. Because if you defend anything from your culture, from your nation, you're deemed to be the worst words imaginable. You know, you're a racist. I don't know, you believe that puppies should be drowned at 6 a.m. every morning or some crazy thing. So if we can't defend who we are as individuals or defend who we are as a collective, we just let people do whatever they want or say whatever they want. We're like, yeah, it's their codependent fawning response. Yeah, I am a piece of shit. Yes, my nation's a piece of shit. Yes, I'm evil. Yes, I'm pointless. Yeah. Where's that going to fucking lead to? Like,
or it's 2 extremes. You overly defend, and then it becomes everything at all means necessary and wipe other people off the face of the fucking earth.
Right. So let's have an agreement that neither of these is an adult approach to life. Can we do that, boys and girls? Like, can we just say?
Wait, Richard, why is the middle road so hard collectively? Why is it so fucking difficult?
They've done a really good job, a really excellent job, and all credit to them for making it completely taboo and untenable to be reasonable, middle ground, nuanced, slow to respond, not wanting to take sides. It's just no, that's not an option for you. It's like, well, if we all took that road, can you not see how this might not be so hysterical? Why, this all feels very neurotic. It feels very hysterical. But yeah, they've done a really good job of it, for sure.
It's hard to find a moment in social media, obviously depends on what you consume, that isn't hysterical. It's just hysteria everywhere, all the time, just neurotic hysteria all everywhere.
If you go to an Instagram profile or an Instagram group or a Facebook group that's about knitting or gardening, or there will be an undertone of hysteria, because it's not really about knitting. It's about look at me. It's not really about gardening. It's about how fucking amazing I am, covertly. So there's always hysteria there. We mentioned borderlines before. People who are deeply traumatized and have post-traumatic stress disorder and end up so emotionally dysregulated that they're on the borderline of being psychotic, which is what borderline personality disorder means. You are right on the border of full-blown fucking psychotic delusion. They suffer from things like thinking styles like catastrophic thinking. Everything is going to be awful. If we don't do this, horrifying things will occur. So we must do it. And they suffer from black and white thinking. Everything is all the way that, or it's all the way this, and there's nothing in between. It's literally a clinical manifestation of borderline personality disorder writ large, projected across an entire culture. You must think and operate like this. And I say, no, fuck off. That is for people who are hurt, traumatized, and who are now deranged because of their pain. I'm not doing that. I don't have to. You can't make me. You can't make me. You'll have to shoot me because I'm not doing your stupid little game.
You know why it's so infectious?
Why?
It's all emotion. It's really easy to spread this type of behavior as like a fucking infection amongst the masses because it's all rooted in emotion. You know, like even the thing is like with the whole narcissism thing, yeah, that's also everywhere too. But I think the emotional volatility of that isn't as prevalent as the other end, which is like really easy to spread because it's pure emotion and people naturally respond to that.
Oh no, by the clinical definition, if you're extremely emotionally labile, you're 100% right. But it's actually clinically correct what you're saying. So if you're very emotionally labile, you're not a grandiose or classical narcissist. You might be a covert, vulnerable, or fragile narcissist, or which vectors in closely for BPD. If you're extremely emotionally labile, if you're calm, cool, and collected, and you're predatory, that's a psychopath or a grandiose narcissist. so you're right. But you're clinically right.
Yeah. And the emotional reactionary behavior requires a boundaried rationalization of how you're feeling. But if you see 10 other people acting emotionally without those boundaries, it's really easy to adopt because those people are validating that it's okay for you to act like that too.
Yes, because as when I was talking in the beginning about these different traits, if we think of it as being like a mixing board for music, so if you dial up the entitlement, dial down the humility, dial down the resilience, you start hitting the constellation of points that basically makes you function like a borderline, even if you're not, because you're functioning from the same constellation of points. So you have this very not like people aren't trained to have boundaries. What we've been discussing today is all boundaries and mainly internal boundaries. So borderline, like the narcissist, has either none or very, very weak internal boundaries. So the outside is the inside and the inside is the outside. If I'm in an emotional flashback and I'm terrified, the world is terror and I'm being oppressed and I'm being predated upon and so on and so forth. So that's why so many people are joining. So you'll have one person who genuinely has clinical BPD supported by a massive people who just vector in for the constellation points for BPD, which many people do.
I think a smaller example is like when you hang out with somebody long enough, you start using the same words and mannerisms. But just imagine that on a collective scale. You know, you listen to a podcast or whoever long enough, you start using some of their words. You start maybe even follow the same cadences, maybe hand gestures or whatever. But now it's different because it's collectively, massively happening at once.
Yes, yes.
So surely the best way forward for humanity is to go to independent souls rather than pack animals.
Oh, King Alfred, with your big sword and your round table, you saucy bearded devil. Yeah, no, King Alfred is right. He's right. Nietzsche was right. collective solutions are, I think, inherently dangerous, or risky. Let me use my language carefully. When we propose collective solutions, we are engaging in a risky endeavor. Whether you're collective from the right, from the left, authoritarian, libertarian, well, you can't be libertarian and collective, but we should be moving towards individual solutions and individual discretion. As you know, when people talk about the Scandinavian countries, treating people like adults, treating people as responsible individuals, not trying to treat everybody like a collection of fragile children, because the way you treat people is the way that they respond. So the UK, for my money right now, which is why I'm very keen to leave and will be probably on Friday, is a place that is the government treats its people like a collective of fragile children, and the collective responds like fragile children. And so, yeah, I agree with you, King Alfred. The solution will lie in proposals for individual behavior rather than collective behavior.
I just thought of something that could be interesting. Do you think it's possible the more individual that we go will actually bond as a community better?
100%. We're back to bashing communism a little bit here because it is collectivism. If you want the difference between capitalism and communism written in other language, you would say individualism versus collectivism. I don't want mommy and daddy to fix it for me. That's communism. It's leftism that leans towards authoritarianism. You can have leftist libertarians, but what you're saying is, if you're for that, you want an authority figure to fix it for you. That's what cancel culture is. It's not I am going to cancel you. It's I'm going to make YouTube cancel you. I'm going to have the police arrest you. I have no agency because I'm the infinite victim. I'm the ultimate codependent scapegoat borderline victim. I have no agency. I never have and I never will. I'm a wank sock for reality. You have offended me. You have upset me. I will have you removed. I won't remove you. I'll have you. So they're always, they're tattletales. They're tattletales. It's always an appeal to authority. So what was the question? What am I babbling on about here? Collectivism?
Wait, fuck. What was the question?
So
the question was, will we, if we further move to individualisation, could it actually produce a better community that way?
100%. It's our only future. Jung said this, Nietzsche. Jung said it because Nietzsche implied it. Adler said it. Our only future. And Adler and Jung, Adler was an active socialist, but he still believed that the individual had to take responsibility for themselves first, and then they were to serve the community. Only then were they to serve the community. And it's an extreme, people hear that and they go, oh yeah, that's what I do. No. This is a hard discipline. And you really have to undergo a Jungian individuation process. And it's not easy because when the pack and the tribe is moving in that direction, for you to move in the other direction it's a huge taboo. It's extremely stressful. So if we all became individuals, as Nietzsche would have had it, a nation of philosopher kings and queens, Übermensch, then yes, we could bind collectively in a boundaried way, and we would have safe attachment. When we're binding to each other without boundaries, it's unsafe attachment. And that's part of the hysteria. That's part of the panic.
Right. Yes. I really like that quote that you just said there. That was great, man.
I drop bombs every once in a while. You gotta give me 2 hours of video before I can do it.
You down for a few more questions?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Cool. June's coming in with great questions, I think. Is there even really such thing as identity? Is identity not what we just consume? I think we have different innate characters, but generally we are more alike than different.
I don't. I'm not a big believer in personality. I'm not a big believer in the MBTI. I do think that, having just said, we should all aim for individuality. I'm speaking from the position of existential nihilism and Buddhism, which is, I know it's kind of lame for a white Westerner to go on about Buddhism, but fuck it, fuck it, yeah, I'll wear that hat. You don't want to collect a burdensome sense of self, which is what identity is. In other words, it's a big fat story. I'm this, I'm that. I fucking love pistachio ice cream, but I hate M&M, or I don't know, whatever your big story is. You want to loosen that story right off. You want to come back to the moment. You want to come back to existence. You want to come back to what is real rather than what the story is. So I'm very suspicious of the story. So yeah, identity is I'm not enamored with particularly.
Yeah, that's a complicated one. I'm not even sure if I have a formidable thought on the concept of identity in the first place. So I don't even begin with that.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm talking about individuality, I'll keep it really brief. There's a whole course I'm going to do on this. Your identity is not even your identity. It's the culture's identity for you. And you have to break that to individuate in the Jungian sense, to achieve enlightenment, if you like, in the Buddhist sense, so that you're showing up as your authentic self. This will be a lifelong endeavor, and it'll never be complete.
Yeah, it's right. Okay. Yeah. Most identities are programmed exclusively by the cultural surroundings. And only until you question and break through that is when you can start determining what behaviors are actually yours.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's the FOMO. To know who you are is to have to admit what you're not and operate accordingly.
Yes. Yeah. This is and that's UG Rose is making a Jungian point here, which is the shadow self is that which we've disavowed, but it is actually part of who we are, and that we have to reintegrate so that it doesn't consume us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What do you say about this? Your identity is pure self-aware being. Living comes out of it.
I would say pure self-aware being is probably beyond identity. Unless, Eric, you're suggesting that we should adopt our sense of identity should just be self-aware being, in which case I would say yes, we would be happier if we lived from that modality. More fulfilled, more content.
Oh, that wasn't, that is interesting too. How does individuality come in picture without any identities? Ooh, it's getting really philosophical.
Yeah, if you want true individuality that's derived of individuation, it would be beyond identity. Identity is that which is given to you from your cultural coordinates. Your individuality is a great mystery. I have no idea what your individuality would look like. Who knows what any of us would look like were we raised in a different culture?
And that's exactly why I don't have an exact answer for this, because the pure concept of what individualization is so ambiguous. Because, like, you're right, you deprogram from your cultural upbringing, then what's there? What actions come from where? What determines you at that point? Then there's like a huge sea of questions after that.
It's difficult. It's really difficult. I listened to Slavoj Žižek talk about the reality of the virtual for 5 years before I finally realized what he meant. You know this old joke he says, we are not the restaurant with the coffee without milk, we're the restaurant with the coffee without cream. What he was actually saying there is the virtual is the unconscious. It is that which is not, but that which is not actually has a reality to it. So when he says the reality of the virtual, that's what he's talking about. So the non-conscious is that which is not there. So we're in very, this is hard stuff. And it's I think where Jung got it wrong was because it was hard, he dove into mystery and magic and religion. And I think it's enough to just say, it is not. It is that which is not. So what would that mean on a practical day-to-day level? That means for the rest of our lives, on a daily basis, we confront that which is not. So, you say that which, this is who I am, my identity. I've got these glasses on. I do my hair like this. What am I not? What am I not? And you got to meditate. This is like a Zen koan. In the Zen tradition, you would be given a koan, which would be a puzzle that you would meditate on, possibly for life. And the idea would be that through meditating and wrestling with a koan, which is an unsolvable question, you would come to some enlightenment. What is that which is not is a question with no answer, but doesn't mean we shouldn't attempt to answer it. It just means we wrestle with it, knowing that there's no answer. So there's a Zen koan actually that's similar to it. One of the traditional Zen koans is, what was the face that you had before your mother and father were born? And you go, hey, that was you when you were not.
Shit.
Really?
That's why the laughing Buddha like came to be a thing, because that's funny, dude.
Funny as fuck. So just to bring people back down to earth, you're not supposed to have an answer. You're supposed to wrestle with it, and through wrestling with it, you draw insight from the wrestling match with it. But this is the reality of the virtual that Zizek was talking about. Zizek's point was, if you're in the restaurant where they only have coffee without cream, but not coffee without milk, there is a difference to the coffee you drink without cream as opposed to coffee without milk. That's the reality of the virtual. That's the reality of the unconscious without Jung's dragons and UFOs and fucking religious stuff.
I like that, man. That's good.
Get everybody high now.
I had a thought, but now that thought is what's not.
Right.
Because I fucking forgot.
That's perfect. That's the thought. That's the perfect thought.
So your identity and personality could be rather the actions and the behaviors that you do not have and do not do.
Well, if you want to go deeper into it, I think what Zizek is saying, and he's saying it because Hegel said it. I know nothing about Hegel, but this is what I was listening to. Is that's actually the truer you.
Ah,
yeah. So if this was a sci-fi movie, let's make it simple. Like if it was a sci-fi movie, you'd be living in a reality, and you're standing on a flat surface, and there's this you, and then there's the not you underneath, which is that which is not you, but this is the real you. If this is some crazy sci-fi scenario, that's actually the truer you.
If you take into account how many opinions and behaviors are derived from compensation, then that means all of those behaviors are just a manifestation of what you might not be actually, but rather what you try to be.
I at this point in my life, I personally believe, I can't prove it and I won't teach it on the main YouTube channel. I actually literally believe that what you said is true to the letter. It's true to the letter.
That's heavy, man.
It's really heavy. And that's why I now, because I look at that and I go, fuck, I need to teach people to meditate, because I don't believe there's anything beyond compensatory gesture. I don't think there is anything beyond compensatory gesture.
I had a thought about compensation not too long ago too. And my thought of it is definitely not as deep as what we're going to right now. But I was thinking, like, you can use compensation in a practical aspect to better yourself in your life in a lot of ways, as long as you're not hurting others.
Yeah.
But then I thought, wait, what act really doesn't come from a place of compensation?
None. It's all compensation. It's all insecurity. And it's more, no, it's wrong to say insecurity. Compensation is more than insecurity. It's all compensatory gestures. Your life is a series of compensatory gestures. The salvation, if there is hope for salvation, is to move past that, is to detach from that, is to let go of that, back to Buddhism again, is to transcend compensatory gesture.
Because that would make sense. Compensatory gestures aren't necessarily the most authentic, even though they could be to a certain degree, but everything underneath that is the true self, which is what is not.
Yes. This thing, I'm sure people are going, what the fuck is this? What are they saying? What are they talking about? Yeah, it's a tough one. Like I said, the guy who I'm going to try and bring on, he runs a YouTube channel called Thoughts on Thinking. I spoke to him through Patreon. I think he's going to come on, and he would be able to give us insights on this from different philosophical traditions, which would be good.
And a more feasible note, sort of. Should we live like the fools that Alan Watts describes? Laughing at life because it's just a game with fancy rules and titles.
I think that there's an element of that where you bring in this archetypal from the tarot, and it's there in multiple cultures. It's there in Islamic culture as well, where you bring in this sense of things being absurd and not having an intrinsic reality. That is useful. I don't think you can live an entire life that way, but I could be wrong. That could be my compensatory part that's saying that.
Here's some advice. Never go full fool.
Yeah, yeah, what it's like.
I decided to jump in the deep end and fully embody this particular archetype, whether it was unintentional or not. Perhaps it's a compensatory gesture, but there are elements in your life that could benefit you if you approach it that way and realize that life is fucking absurd and it's hilarious and it's a game that makes no sense. But if you are consistently floating in this type of ambiguity, it can really send you to a fucking tornado in your psyche, and I can attest to this.
Yeah. I think it's probably a yin yang. We need balance. You don't so maybe the counterpart to the fool in the tarot in the major arcana would be the king, or the emperor. You don't want to be fully one thing or the other thing at all times. There is a time to be taking stock, taking control, and having structure, and then there's a time to just sit back and go, okay, wow, just let that be what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good coping mechanism for me. I mean, goddamn, life is absurd. None of it makes any sense. You might as well just laugh at it.
Sometimes this is the way it be.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
You got time for more, or how you feeling?
Should we do one more? And then I better go and put food in myself. I tell you what, man, I'm back in this kickboxing in a big way. I can't stay off the fucking bag. I'll get us some pads when I come over to Prague, and I'll show you some pad work, some fancy stuff. I know you won't want to do boring stuff, so we'll do like spinning.
I got 3 nunchucks, and one of them is for you to use, man.
I'm pretty good with the nunchucks, baby.
Dude, I'm getting pretty good too, man. I got some fancy movements.
Be out there in the park nunchucking the fuck around. A couple of retards.
I can't tell if we would look really scary or just complete buffoons.
I'm going with the buffoon on that one, but we can always try.
I guess the craziest buffoon is something to fear as well, right?
Right. Fearful, but not in the way we want. Fearful, like escaped lunatic from an asylum.
So one last question, guys. Make it good, and then we are off. Man, this has been a really good discussion, man. This is a really good one.
Yeah, it's good.
We didn't even cover FOMO, even in the slightest.
No, I had so much to say on FOMO as well. The fear of that which is not. I want to experience everything, and I don't want to experience that which I'm not experiencing.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
That's what it is. And it dominates life and dominates behavior.
And it's not a question, but we'll do this while the questions are coming out. You need to be roommates and have a reality TV show. Could you imagine, dude?
And how quickly would that get cancelled?
Yeah. It's already enough when Richard comes for 1 week. I don't know if we stayed long term together is any good for our mental health, man. Okay, you can choose. I've been choosing all these ones, so we'll let it slide a bit more, and you guys.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, we'll finish with this one. We've got a question here that says, "Do you think that FOMO is curable?" Yeah, I do think FOMO is curable. You have to mature. You've got to mature. You've got to realize that like life is not one long buffet or consumption fest. It's got to be about more than that. Yeah. And when we say with a fear of missing out, it's not like you're fearing missing out on a maths exam or doing some really fucking hard work. It's you're fearing missing out some enjoyable experience. If all your enjoyment is drawn from experience, your locus of control is entirely external. So if you make your locus of control internal and you mature, you can cure this FOMO nonsense. You can't everything all the time.
I cured it from chasing the FOMO and realized that there was nothing at the end of the rainbow. I was fucking over it by the end of it. So there, you can go two routes: meditate it out, take a step back, or just dive head first, go through a lot of craziness, and then realize that it's not worth it.
Yeah. Right. So you do Buddha with me or Dionysus with him.
You know which one you want. All right, last one. How can you tell the difference between authenticity and what you think should suit you on paper from a place of good intent? I think this is a good one.
Yeah. The capacity to intuit with good high levels of emotional literacy. You have to be emotionally literate for this one. If you're emotionally literate, you'll be emotionally intelligent. Your intuition will be working and you'll have good internal boundaries. Is when something pops up and you go, I think this is me. You should be able to intuit instantly whether that's you or that's imposed upon you by family, culture, the tribe, and what other people want. I think that's the way I would have been doing it.
Yeah. To go off what you just said, I think it comes from a place where when you do write that intention or goal down on that paper, question where that came from and why you think that's good intent, why you think that that is the place that you should be. And like you said, it could be from your family, indoctrination, the culture, maybe that they want you to do that. So your authenticity comes from the ability to discern where you think you should be and if you think you're capable of doing it.
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, that was we went to many places this evening. I didn't expect to go. Did we fix the political situation at the global level, Pierre?
I want to say yes. It's good for my ego.
Alrighty. I'm glad we did. Somebody please send this video over to the White House immediately. We fixed it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Do you have any final thoughts, Mr. Pierre? I like that one. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And all things being well, you will see me and Pierre in the same room together in real time in Prague next week.
In front of a green screen.
Oh, God.
You're going to be in a spaceship, Richard.
I can't wait to be in a spaceship, Pierre.
You're going to join the flip ship, dog.
Oh, goody, goody gumdrops. I'm sure that will do wonders for me to be in the flip ship.
Goodbye, my friends. It was good seeing y'all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next week in the flip ship. Cheerio.